told you that the exact moment a king takes his last breath. Not a minute later, not after some grand ceremony, not after anyone signs a single piece of paper, his son is already a king.
When most people think of royal power, they picture crowns, ceremonies, and palace balconies. But inside the British monarchy, real power often looks very different. It looks like land, ancient land, castles, coastlines, farms, rental homes, private estates, and centuries of inherited wealth, quietly generating millions every single year. And when Queen Elizabeth II died in September 2022, one of the biggest transfers of wealth and influence in modern royal history happened almost instantly. Prince William didn't just inherit a new title, he inherited control over a royal empire. An empire so large, so old, and so financially powerful that it changed his place inside the monarchy overnight. But what happened next caught royal watchers off guard, because almost as soon as William took control, he began making changes. And one of those changes landed uncomfortably close to Queen Camilla's family. A quiet removal. No dramatic statement, no public confrontation, just one decision. And a message that may have been impossible to ignore. Because this wasn't only about money, it was about something much bigger. Who holds influence now? Who may lose it next? And what William's first major moves reveal about the kind of king he may one day become. September 8th, 2022. Balmoral Castle. The death of Queen Elizabeth II marked the end of an era. But in the monarchy, death is never only personal. It is constitutional, immediate, transformative, automatic. The moment Elizabeth died, titles changed, roles changed, power changed hands. Charles became king, and William, at just 40 years old, became the Duke of Cornwall. To many people, that title may sound ceremonial. It isn't, because with that title came control over one of the most important and valuable private estates in Britain, the Duchy of Cornwall, and that is where the story truly begins. What William actually inherited. The Duchy of Cornwall is not simply a historic name, it is a working financial machine, created in 1337 by King Edward III for his son, Edward, known as the Black Prince. The duchy was designed to provide income to the monarch's eldest son and heir. That was nearly 700 years ago, and the system still exists today. When William inherited it, he gained control of roughly 135,000 acres of land spread across England and Wales. That includes farmland, holiday cottages, villages, historic buildings, financial investments, and even control over most of the Isles of Scilly. Think about the scale of that. Not one house, not one estate, an entire network of land and income streams built over centuries. Pieces of Cornwall, large stretches of Devon, properties in Herefordshire and Somerset. It is less like inheriting a family home, and more like inheriting a private kingdom inside the kingdom. By 2025, the duchy was reportedly generating around $30 million a year for William. Not through a salary, not through a business he built himself, but through land, rents, leases, and assets accumulated across generations of royal history. That is the kind of inheritance that doesn't just make someone wealthy, it makes them institutionally powerful. Because in the royal family, control of land means more than money. It means influence. It means appointments. It means who stays close and who doesn't. The part most people miss. To understand why William's early decisions mattered so much, you have to understand something about the monarchy that often gets lost behind the pageantry. Not all royal property is the same. Some properties belong to the crown, some belong to the state, and some are personal, private, passed from monarch to monarch like family inheritance. That distinction is everything. Because when Queen Elizabeth II died, two of the most emotionally important royal residences passed not to the public, but to Charles personally, Sandringham and Balmoral. Sandringham in Norfolk is where the royal family gathers for Christmas. Balmoral, in the Scottish Highlands, is where monarchs retreat from public life. These are not just expensive estates. They are part of the emotional architecture of the royal family itself. Prime ministers visit there, family crises unfold there, and history seems to settle into the walls. Charles inherited them as private property, and one day, William is expected to inherit them next. That means William is not only the current owner of the Duchy of Cornwall, he is also the future owner of the royal family's most intimate private world, and that future may already be shaping his behavior now. The quiet decision that sent a message. There are moments in royal life that look small on paper, but carry an outsized message. This was one of them. At the center of it was Annabel Elliot, Queen Camilla's younger sister. Annabel is a respected interior designer, known for a style that blends old-world English elegance with comfort and warmth. But more than that, she is one of Camilla's closest family members, trusted, familiar, long established inside Charles's world. For years, Annabel worked on properties tied to the Duchy of Cornwall. She helped oversee design and interior work on holiday rentals and related estate properties. According to publicly discussed reporting, she had been paid tens of thousands of pounds across different years for that work. Then, William took over the duchy, and Annabel was no longer kept on in the same way. No public feud followed, no dramatic palace briefing, just a simple reality. William became the new Duke of Cornwall, and he chose his own direction. That decision may have looked administrative, but inside royal circles, administrative decisions can carry emotional weight. Because when one generation takes over a royal operation, every staffing change becomes symbolic. It raises a question. Was this simply normal transition, or was William signaling that the old arrangements built around Charles would not automatically survive into his era? Why this hit deeper than a payroll change? On the surface, removing one designer from an estate role may not seem dramatic. The sums involved were relatively small compared with the overall scale of the duchy. But symbolism matters in monarchy, and this move carried symbolism in abundance because it suggested three things at once. First, William was asserting independence. Second, inherited loyalty would not guarantee inherited influence. And third, the future king may already be drawing a line between Charles's world and his own. That matters because Charles spent decades building relationships around the Duchy of Cornwall. He managed it for most of his adult life. He shaped its culture, its priorities, its people. And in that long period, Camilla's family found a place within that ecosystem. But when William inherited the duchy, he did not inherit a duty to preserve every relationship attached to it. He inherited the right to decide, and in royal terms, the right to decide is real power. The Camilla factor. Any story involving William and Camilla carries deeper emotional history. Because long before Camilla became queen consort, she was part of one of the most painful chapters in William's life. He grew up watching his mother, Princess Diana, suffer through a marriage overshadowed by another woman. And that woman was Camilla Parker Bowles. When Charles publicly acknowledged the affair in the 1990s, it was more than scandal. It was deeply personal for Diana, for the public, and for her sons. William and Harry were still young when Diana died in 1997. And while William has publicly maintained composure and never treated Camilla with open hostility, history does not simply vanish. It settles, quietly, and then it resurfaces in subtler ways. That is why any decision affecting Camilla's side of the family attracts so much attention, because people immediately wonder, is this business? Is this strategy? Or is old pain still shaping the future behind palace walls? The truth may be more complicated, because William's decision-making does not need to come from resentment to still feel significant. He may simply be doing what future monarchs often do: clearing space, creating his own team, building a system around people he trusts. And if that process sidelines people connected to Camilla's world, the meaning may still be the same, even if the motivation is different. William's leadership style is already showing. The Duchy of Cornwall is more than a source of income. It is a preview, a training ground for kingship, and William appears to understand that. because the way he runs the duchy may reveal how he intends to run the monarchy one day. Reports and commentary around his management style suggest something increasingly clear. William is not interested in simply inheriting tradition. He wants to shape it. He asks questions. He reviews old structures. He appears more willing to scrutinize inherited arrangements rather than protect them out of habit. That approach can look modern, efficient, disciplined, but it can also create friction, especially in an institution built on continuity, family networks, and long-standing loyalties. William seems to be learning one of monarchy's hardest lessons in real time. The crown may be inherited, but authority has to be exercised, and the moment you begin exercising it, people notice. Friends of the old order notice. Families connected to the previous generation notice. And the public begins to see the outline of a very different reign ahead. The scale of what's still coming. As vast as William's current holdings are, they may only be the beginning. Because when Charles eventually dies, William is expected to inherit far more than the throne. He is expected to inherit the private estates tied personally to the monarch. That means Sandringham. That means Balmoral. And potentially a much larger share of the private royal world that sits outside the ordinary imagination of the public. These aren't just beautiful properties. They are legacy estates. Places where royal memory lives, places where family hierarchy becomes visible, places where ownership quietly shapes access, who visits, who stays, who works there, who remains welcome. And that is where the long-term implications for Camilla become more delicate, because as long as Charles is alive, Camilla remains queen consort with access, status, and institutional support. But once William becomes king, the structure changes. The center of gravity shifts, and estates that feel shared now may no longer be hers to shape. That does not mean conflict is inevitable, but it does mean future influence may depend less on position and more on William's willingness to preserve it. Camilla's present power and future uncertainty. Today, Camilla remains one of the most powerful women in the royal family. She lives within the highest level of royal privilege. She carries out official duties. She has the king's support. And she occupies a place beside the monarch that once seemed impossible. But royal position can be strong in the present and uncertain in the future. If Charles dies before Camilla, her status changes. She would no longer be the reigning consort, and properties like Balmoral and Sandringham, privately owned by the monarch, would pass onward to William. That means the future shape of Camilla's royal life may be less secure than it appears from the outside. In the meantime, those closest to her may also feel that uncertainty, because if William is already showing how he intends to handle estate management, contracts, and influence, then people around Camilla may reasonably ask, what happens when his authority expands even further? What survives from Charles's era? And what gets left behind? This isn't really about one person. It would be easy to reduce this story to a feud: William versus Camilla, stepson versus stepmother, old wounds resurfacing through property and payroll. But that may be too simple, because what's unfolding here is bigger than one relationship. It's about transition. The transition from Charles's long era of stewardship into William's more disciplined, more selective, more visibly managerial style. And these transitions are rarely announced. They happen through patterns. A contract not renewed, a trusted old figure replaced, a new advisor brought in, a decision that seems small until you realize what it represents. That is how monarchy evolves behind the curtain, not always with drama, often with paperwork. But paperwork inside royal life can be destiny in disguise. The real question this story raises: so what does William's first major inheritance really tell us? It tells us that his future reign is unlikely to be a simple continuation of his father's. It tells us that financial control inside the monarchy matters just as much as ceremonial rank. And it tells us that William appears willing to make difficult choices early, even if those choices cause discomfort close to home. The Duchy of Cornwall gave him more than money. It gave him a laboratory for power, a place to make decisions, to test instincts, to learn what leadership feels like when it affects real people, real relationships, and real expectations. And perhaps most importantly, it gave the public a first look at how Prince William behaves when tradition collides with control. Royal history is often told through coronations, weddings, and funerals, but some of the most important chapters begin much more quietly, in estate accounts, in inherited titles, in decisions about who stays and who goes. When William inherited the Duchy of Cornwall, he did not just receive land, income, and ancient privilege. He received the power to shape a future, and with that power came a choice. Preserve the old network around his father, or begin building something unmistakably his own. So far, his decisions suggest he already knows the answer. This may have looked like a story about one estate, one contract, one removal from the payroll, but beneath it lies something much bigger. A prince preparing for kingship, a queen consort watching influence shift around her, and a monarchy revealing, in its usual quiet way, that the next era may already be taking shape, because in royal life, the loudest power moves are rarely spoken out loud.